Hello, everybody. This is Kevin Meredith and
Hi guys, it's your girl.
the incomparable Brene Hendricks. We are live for our normal discussion, Innovation Insights. Welcome, everybody. Here we go. This is the start of a new month. So we're going to have a different focus throughout this month than we have for January. Just to keep it fresh and hopefully interesting for everybody. Brene's light looks much better than mine. So,
You think so?
yeah, I look like Gollum. But,
Gollum got corrupted and became Smeagol.
well, I look like Schmeagol then. But this month there's a lot of really important recognitions that happen this month, primarily Black History Month, but it's also National Engineering Month. Both topics near and dear to my heart, but we also have a week thrown in there that's called Fashion Week, New York, and someone gets real excited about that. And then we also have another week thrown in there, National Entrepreneurship Week. So there's a lot going on here in this short little month of February.
Super Bowl.
Oh, and the Super Bowl, which is going to be hosted here in
not here.
Southern California. Yeah, we're going to have a Super Bowl party here. Everyone's invited. But that is what is going on this month. And so we were trying to think through, where that overlap happens with a lot of that stuff. And there's some really interesting and authentic ways to explore these things that we're excited to go through this month. But one of the overarching things is that we didn't want to just retell the stories that are at our fingertips that maybe everybody has already heard or has a preconceived notion of some sort of reality around. And so what we want to do is highlight people of different stories that have different stories that we don't hear all the time. And that is really exciting to me, is to highlight those stories and really hopefully the hope is we'll have some live guests, whether they come in virtually or if they're on here with us. This is a nice setting to have an interview. We're in the library today.
Down a little more.
What? Party. Let's go. It's February. So, we are broadcasting from 4th Sector, Ontario, in historic downtown Ontario, California. This is the library. We call it Elevate Library and Lounge. Great vibe. This is one of my favorite spots in the whole place.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Underutilized in a lot of ways. We are hopeful that you can come in and check it out. But let's talk a little bit about who do people expect us to talk about, Brene, as we talk about National Engineering Month and we talk about Black History. Who are we supposed to talk about? Let's get that all on the table now, and then we can really explore some of the lesser known stories throughout the month.
I wouldn't know it in regards to engineering per se, but I would say the stories that consistently we are told about: Harriet Tubman, Madam C.J. Walker, Frederick Douglass, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I feel like those are probably the most prominent. Malcolm X. I would say those are the top people that.
What about on the legal side? There's a big name that you're leaving out.
The legal side.
Yeah. Supreme Court Justice.
Oh. I didn't know if you were referring to President Barack Obama.
Oh no, that's even bigger. We forgot about that one. Boy.
But I feel like those are also new names that
So this one's maybe like a bridge between older and.
Into who are you talking about?
Thurgood Marshall.
Oh, yes.
Big
Yeah, but I
influence.
wouldn't say that's not one that I feel like every school, every elementary school is doing a project on Thurgood Marshall. I feel
They
like
should be.
every
They should.
school, elementary school that I ever went to, each year was, like the big three. You only
Yeah.
had a couple to choose from.
I think another one that, at least in my recollections, which is a long time ago, was Rosa Parks. Did we have Rosa Parks in there? I think that was one that was perennially part of the mix.
Yes.
So, but basically, we're talking one hand, right? Versus the millions of amazing stories that are out there to be able to represent and highlight the amazing, what's the right word? The amazing ability to like overcome these huge obstacles, not just for the sake of overcoming those obstacles, because they fought for what they believed was right, or they had the fortitude to do what a lot of other people chose not to do in a lot of ways. And that is always been kind of inspiring to me, that you can do what you're not supposed to be able to do. How people find a way to do that is just inspiring to me. And so if we can have the ability to tell more of those stories in an authentic way, that's what we're going to try and do this month. So what else do you want to say about this month, Pranay?
I so many things. How much time do you got?
Endless. No, we have 45 more minutes.
No, I would just say that again, going to like elementary school and being given 3 to 4 main choices of, here's a picture, color it, cut it out, or back when I was in school, it was encyclopedia.
So, remember those things?
Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh man, I can just see it. Smell it. They had a smell inside those pages.
For sure. I think now as an adult and understanding critical race theory, I look at Black history probably a little bit different. It's the same thing with something like Columbus Day. If you're always fed one narrative and only that narrative, you kind of adopt it as truth, as opposed to as truth the way it was presented to you.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that, it is a lot of our American history. We're not learning the full narrative of the way things kind of played out. So
like even if you can never fully grasp the full narrative, like not even being in the ballpark of the true narrative, I think is a huge problem as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I just think that there's a different level of, you unlock levels of understanding and empathy and sympathy that, come from having a full narrative. So
not to switch topics, but I think in a lot of ways, like Columbus Day, like you were saying, or even Thanksgiving, the convenient narrative of like, oh, they were all sitting down at the table together, eating some pie, like that. There are elements in that story that absolutely are true, but the idea that they were all just like, hey, let's call this Thanksgiving and let's all sit together, that's really not how it was from the way that we understand today. But it's just kind of the convenient, and even like my kids trying to have that conversation with them, like not like not in an in-your-face way, but just like, hey, is
Yeah.
is that what they're
Mhm.
teaching still? Like, so
Let's
we,
make a turkey.
yeah,
Or let's make a little,
a
work with
headband. Do
the
they do that
Indian
anymore?
headband. I
I
don't
don't
know.
even
I'm
know if
sure they
that's,
probably don't. But
yeah,
back, when I was in school, of course, that was part of
yeah,
it.
for
But
sure.
I think that part of the healing process is putting the truth out there.
Yeah,
Really being authentic. And I think that when we talk about things like critical race theory, the opposition of it is, then we don't have to have accountability. If we don't talk about it, we don't have
yeah,
to, and these are crucial, uncomfortable conversations that need to happen
totally.
so that perspectives can be shared, seen, understood, respected. So yeah, that's what I think about.
So all of what you just
Black
said, though,
history.
plays directly into innovation, in that if we want to really drive the ability to create and sustain value, which at its core is what innovation is all about, we can't do it through a single perspective or a single stakeholder group. The ideal customer doesn't exist. So let's just like push out that idea and say, well, how can we, in the development of these innovations, how can we incorporate these broader stakeholder needs to be part of whatever product or service that we're trying to offer? And that goes from this idea of stakeholder discovery, but it also is the actual composition of the teams that create these new products and services for the world. And diversity is not something to just do lip service for. You know, look at millions and millions of years of evolution, of the importance of biodiversity, the poison, the toxicity that we see, the susceptibility that we see in biology when we go to mono anything is really dangerous and harmful. And so if we can extract that, learn from that biology, and see these symbiotic relationships that exist between all the different components of an ecosystem, another word that just gets thrown around these days like a rag doll. When we look at the real origins of what an ecosystem is, and can learn from how ecosystems thrive in the natural world and apply those learnings to all sorts of scenarios, challenges, problems that we face today, we see that there really are great opportunities in fully expressing and utilizing diversity to support and create outcomes. And so I think that's the tie back to innovation in a very authentic and pure way, is that without it, you're not really able to optimize the full or realize the full value potential of any opportunity, service, product, whatever it is that you're pursuing, endeavor. Peace.
Is that an end with that?
Days. No, that's
Okay.
we don't need, well, we do need some amount of friction. We need the ability, as Brene was saying, to have these crucial conversations, that we can't just sweep stuff under the rug and pretend like it's going to be okay. We also need the skills and capabilities to have those conversations in a constructive way that leads to a better path forward. And that takes an enormous amount of energy and skill to be done. But if we don't practice it and we just hide behind our devices and anonymity and all this, we're not going to get better at it, and it's going to have much larger consequences, is my thinking. Could be wrong, but when you learn about communication and the idea of these crucial conversations, they're not like wine. They don't necessarily get better with age. Some things you have to have that conversation about, even though it's difficult to bring it up, difficult to work through it. Yeah, so you got to face into it though, or else you're not going to have a choice at some point, and it could likely be much more substantial consequences. That's not fear mongering, by the way. That's just like, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but go have those crucial conversations. Go do it. Have one today. Practice.
And I think too, part of it is having the crucial conversation with yourself to
Hello.
To check your own personal biases and actually look in the mirror, because a lot of it too is it's like a lack of cultural accountability, but also a lack of personal accountability. And if more personal accountability happens, then as a culture,
right,
that accountability happens more collectively. So
you're not always right, self.
And I think the more situations you go into, what I would define as not being Beyonce. So like, I don't have to go into every situation being the lead singer. I can play background vocals. I don't have to be the driver or ride shotgun. Sometimes I can sit in the back seat. And I think the more conversations we allow ourselves to go into thinking that, even if we may be the expert and may have experience in, 5 areas, we don't have experience in all the areas, and so I think that's, I think a lot of things about Black History Month, but
we can keep going.
Just in coming back to the idea of there's a handful that were always kind of icons that are important. We should share their stories. Countless movies have been made about them and books written. But I think that's also a portion of that is to push that same narrative, that this limiting kind of, this is what it was. Even the versions of the stories that we hear, we don't hear always the full story.
Yeah.
And I think it's bittersweet. I think it's a bittersweet month in terms of it's acknowledging the positive, but it's also mourning the negative, and the struggle and the strife. And as much as people want to say, systemic racism doesn't exist. And
who wants to say that?
Some people that I used to work with.
Well,
I don't think we're friends anymore.
How convenient.
I don't think we're friends anymore.
How convenient.
So I think as an adult, I look at it differently. I feel differently. I'm connected in a different way. We don't have to get too deep today, but
if not today, when? I mean, we're here.
Well, I just felt like, as a science person, you probably can attest to this. Race is something that was created as a way to validate the oppression of Black people, the oppression of people of color.
Race doesn't really exist in anything other than what humans have created.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no biological basis of race. Zero.
And you would think that, if you look at it scientifically from a DNA standpoint, we would have more similarities than we would not, essentially. The same way that if Kay Yang came in here, you guys might have more similarities. So there's no accounting for it. So I just think that
the features that we highlight are adaptations of the geographies that we primarily came from, but the little twisted pair are so close to similar in every one of us. It really would be like a rounding error in most accounting problems, the difference that there is in our DNA. And so preach, Renee.
So I guess I kind of look at it as that's all another narrative that was given to say, I mean, if you're looking back into slavery days and publications that came out that discussed, you know, the Black people were inferior because of these reasons, you know, they utilized, I won't say utilized, they created scientific fact to support their personal biases. And that's what makes it systematic. Is it was literally, oh yes, this is a science book, we're going to say that Black people are faster because of this thing,
Right.
or they are, you know, subhuman because of this thing.
Right.
And
But and then in a lot of ways you can extrapolate that to all savages, like around the world at that time, like
right.
just they were seen as less than, and reinforced their thinking of that through certain things. But it also, I mean, not saying that there weren't specific papers and writings that purported that viewpoint, but from a science perspective, more broadly, like certain things, like at that time, Darwin and the origin of species was just kind of coming to light, and people obfuscated the principles that are laid out through biology in that book towards like social Darwinism, which is a construct that says, oh, only the survival of the fittest, and so if you're an inferior race, we need to wipe you out. Like there's nothing in biology that suggests that's the way things should be, or how the theory of evolution was created. So it's up to us to be diligent and make sure that these dangerous applications of these things are kept in check to the way that they're intended to be used, or that we understand them.
Yeah, I just think that when we talk about Black history, there's so many layers of Black history, of course. I mean, with anyone's history, it's very nuanced and so many layers. But I think even, you know, going back to those written works and publications, that the way that Black people were tested on in the medical field, in the medical industry, and to see present day,
Yep.
the same kind of systematic mistreatment, and, you know, the maternal mortality rate in Black women and women of color more broadly. But just that's the history, you know, it's still happening, and it's kind of painted as a picture of you know, many people say very insensitive and ignorant things like, well, it's not as bad as it used to be, as that's some
that's
kind
a great bar,
you know, yeah, some kind of consolation for inequality.
Yeah.
to say so
is that a perverse way of saying that there's been progress? Like,
I think so.
Interesting.
I think so. And it gets thrown around quite a bit with the people that you don't expect to necessarily say.
Oh, is that why you got mad at me last week? I'm sorry. Didn't even catch it.
Don't listen to him, y'all. It wasn't him. But I'm excited to get into this month and talk about some new people that y'all haven't heard of, or maybe aren't super familiar with.
Yeah.
Definitely excited to get into Fashion Week.
Yeah. And the Super Bowl. So maybe there's some room to discuss some of the innovations around the league in lots of different aspects, but the ones that come to mind are how we watch and view the game. Like these shots of these string controlled cameras are fascinating, like unbelievable, inspired by video games. Like these are the shots that video games used to be able to give us, and now people really want to see them that way. So there's another cross-industry influence to talk through with respect to innovation. And then there's also safety, helmets, making sure that the players are protected, changing the rules of the game to help protect the players. I'm not a huge football expert by any means. I played 1 year in 7th grade, I believe it was. And
were you on the blue team?
I don't know what that means even. So that's how bad I am at
I
understanding
mean,
football.
when you're in 7th
We were the
grade.
Morris Mustangs.
Okay.
And so our colors were blue and white. So I was definitely on the blue team.
Okay.
Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. No, we were such a small. So we played basically a small-sided version of football in my rural area because we didn't have enough people to field a team, and so everybody played in the whole area this small-sided game of football, full-sized field with fewer people, and the score didn't really get run up. That's how bad things were in my mind. But that was a really good experience. I always wanted to do that because my stepfather was a pretty good football player, and I played soccer. That was what I grew up playing and played in college. But I wanted to do that just to have the diversity of experience and see what it was like. So, another example of trying stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It didn't work for me. What were we talking about? Blue team? Yeah, so I probably was on the blue team. No. But as a 7th grader, like scrawniest of scrawny 7th graders, I played in one varsity game as a 7th grader. That's how small the team was that they needed, or they allowed me to play in one varsity game.
That's scary.
Yeah. So.
And with that,
Brené's kicking us out of here. We'll see you next week. And don't forget, later this week, aka tomorrow, we've got Coffee with Kevin Innovation. That's our weekly open hours, like office hours like time, however we want to say that.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Bring your questions about innovation, entrepreneurship. We talk through them, drink some good coffee, and it's pretty laid back, good vibe. And then Brené has her weekly on Thursdays at, are we doing it 11 or 10 these days?
10.
Traditionally, it's 10. Last week, we had a meeting, and that's why we pushed it to 11. So this week, we'll be back to the normal time at 10. Work-life wellness with Brené, and she's going to be talking about...
I don't know yet. So
she's going to be talking about...
We'll figure that out on Thursday.
Come on, I was putting you on the spot.
I know. I can't be peer pressured into coming up with ideas.
Fine.
But I'll see you guys Thursday, and I'll have something to talk about.
Thanks, y'all. I like this setup here.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do this again. Maybe not have the camera shaking around so much. We'll figure that out.
Was that me?
No, but just in general. Maybe there's an earthquake. We are in SoCal. All right, y'all. And with that, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. I don't know what's wrong with me.